WWE wrestlers that killed their careers because of one match. Mr. Kennedy. I remember Mr. Kennedy. This ruthless aggression wrestler was being fast-tracked into the main event scene. The former WWE United States champion made his debut on SmackDown in 2005, and he had what most men in pro wrestling want: charisma. His mic gimmick was simple, yet the former WWE star stood out from everyone else on the roster. WWE gave him an undefeated streak early in his career, but it wasn't before long before he won the US title. It was a short reign, but Mr. Kennedy bounced back by winning the Money in the Bank ladder match at WrestleMania 23. Unfortunately, he lost the briefcase to Edge due to a misdiagnosis of a triceps tear that creative thought would keep him out of action for over 5 months. But Vince didn't give up on Mr. Kennedy, as he saw him as a future main eventer. The illegitimate son angle was meant to reveal Mr. Kennedy as Vince's bastard son, but that was scrapped due to him receiving a wellness policy suspension. But then May 25, 2009 happened. Mr. Kennedy made a huge return after a dislocated shoulder put him back on the injury list. He was then in a 10-man tag team match and botched a backdrop that saw Orton land on the back of his neck. The former WWE star revealed that Orton complained to management about his recklessness inside the squared circle. Kennedy was then fired 4 days later. It's not clear who got the former WWE star fired, as there are reports that John Cena also complained to Vince as well. Mr. Kennedy would have been a world champion had it not been for his botch against Orton. Then again, Mr. Kennedy was very injury prone, so the botch against Orton didn't particularly prevent him from becoming WWE champion. As you can imagine, the former WWE star was bitter after his abrupt firing. Kennedy then had a run in TNA, but was never able to recapture the magic he had in WWE. The former United States champion will be one of the men who had plenty of potential to become something big, and who knows what could have happened to him had he not killed his career with that botch. Hideo Itami. On the opposite end was Hideo Itami, who was nowhere close to reaching the main event, but when the former Pro Wrestling Noah star finally signed a contract with WWE in 2014, it was exciting to see what the Japanese legend could do under the WWE brand. Itami had an okay first year in NXT, but just when it finally seemed that the newcomer was going to dip his toes into the main event scene, a shoulder injury took him out of action for over a year. That was the biggest problem for Itami. Every time he would get some form of momentum, he would be slapped with an injury. All the excitement and buzz he had coming into the company was gone by the time he finally made his Raw debut on December 18, 2017. Now Itami was slowly regaining steam thanks to his feud against Bobby Roode and Aleister Black. That all changed with one GTS. The man who created the legendary move had to go to sleep on Brian Kendrick and broke his nose. Though it was an accident, that still prompted Vince to ban him from using the GTS, and Itami's experience became a miserable going through the motions run when he was wasted in a division that was treated as an afterthought. It's doubtful that Vince saw Itami as anything more than a cruiserweight, but that unfortunate injury to Brian Kendrick stripped away the very move that made Itami famous. The former IWGP United States champion hasn't been shy about expressing his frustrations regarding his failed WWE run. Given how much hype he had before coming in and the lackluster fan reception when he left, it's understandable why Kenta resents his time in being in the biggest company in North America. Jackie Gator. The Tough Enough winner is infamous in the wrestling world, but not for a particularly great reason. As entertaining as Tough Enough was, the reality show was an ultimate bust because it only produced one star, The Miz. Now, John Morrison and Maven had notable careers, but they never got out of the mid-card vortex. Jackie Gator was not a good wrestler, and many have seen that match with Trish Stratus and Bradshaw on July 8, 2002. Now, that match was fine when Bradshaw and Christopher Nowinski were in the ring, but when Gator and Trish were fighting, it turned bowling shoe ugly. The former WWE star had numerous botches, including a delayed sell after Trish hit a bulldog from the second rope. This didn't instantly kill Gator's career. WWE officials realized that she wasn't ready to be in the ring and sent her back to OVW, but Jackie was never taken seriously as a top female star, and Jackie Gator was simply treated as eye candy when she returned to the main roster. Her most notable moment was the Playboy evening gown match against Sable and Tori Wilson. Her performance against Trish put her in the box of women who were used to excite the male audience. And granted, that was most of the women during this period because Trish was no stranger to bra and panties matches, but Gator was never treated as a serious contender for the WWE Women's title following that infamous match. Christopher Nowinski. Christopher Nowinski may have escaped the embarrassment of his infamous Raw match with Jackie Gator, but his 2003 Rumble appearance made him something far worse. The former Tough Enough contestant came in the bout at number 3 and made a splash until a mistimed missile dropkick caused Edge to fall onto Chris's head. Nowinski would continue wrestling for the next couple of months, but the post-concussion symptoms forced him to retire following his final match with Maven. Nowinski had some potential as he played the brash and arrogant Harvard graduate pretty well. He was a solid wrestler and Nowinski could have gotten better if he wasn't forced to retire. But thankfully, Nowinski is now doing well outside of the business as he went on to help other athletes who've gone through the same issues he did. Nowinski wrote a book titled The Head Games Football Concussions Crisis in 2006 and received plenty of praise for his study on the long-term effects of head trauma. Nowinski was part of a huge concussion lawsuit filed against the WWE in 2016, but the case was ultimately dismissed mainly due to lack of evidence. Still, Nowinski helped change necessary policies in the company that prevented further athletes from suffering the same problems he did during his post-concussion days. Daniel Puder. Speaking of Tough Enough again, Daniel Puder had a blink-and-you'll-miss-it run. Another Tough Enough winner, Puder got the chance to show what he got against Kurt Angle on the November 4th, 2004 episode of SmackDown. Unfortunately, Puder decided to go into business for himself and put Kurt Angle into a legit Chimera lock. Now, to be fair, Kurt has talked about this and he revealed that he ignored Vince's advice and put Puder on the spot. Puder didn't have a good start and got massive backstage heat, but that wasn't the match that killed his career, it was the Royal Rumble match. That match is infamous for the shoot of Eddie Guerrero and Hardcore Holly chopping the hell out of the Tough Enough winner. However, this is the bout where WWE realized that Puder wasn't ready for primetime television. Officials sent him down to OVW and Puder was never seen on the main roster ever again. Vince offered him another contract, but for Deep South Wrestling with less pay, and Puder declined. Making the transition from MMA to pro wrestling is no easy feat. However, it seemed that Puder's arrogance was his biggest downfall. He simply wasn't a good wrestler, so his alleged ego wasn't worth dealing with in the long run. Sim Snuka. Deuce and Domino was a little fun act that saw some decent success throughout their short run. These two didn't particularly have an instant classic to speak of, but they had some good matches and their 50s greaser persona made them stand out from the roster. However, this wasn't an act meant to last long. Vince being Vince, he opted to break up the tag team just a year after they made their debut. Domino and Cherry didn't stand a chance as a singles act, but Deuce was a second-gen star, so he had the best shot at reaching the main event. But then, WrestleMania 25 happened. Now granted, Deuce, who was going by Sim Snuka at this point, didn't have a bright future before this huge botch. Once he failed to get into Legacy, Snuka was barely used on television. The match that killed his career wasn't his, it was The Undertaker vs Shawn Michaels. The spot in question was The Undertaker diving over the ropes with Shawn pulling a cameraman to take the dive instead. Snuka was a cameraman and his job was simple: catch The Undertaker. He didn't, and though Taker himself has stated that the botch adds more drama to their WrestleMania Classic, that didn't help Snuka as he was released a short time later. Bret Hart. Bret Hart is the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be. The Hall of Famer is celebrated by wrestlers and fans alike for his incredible WWE run, but for anyone who knows their WWE history, the Montreal Screwjob changed absolutely everything. Bret Hart was no longer a WWE guy, he became a WCW guy in 1997, but his time in the company is a very mixed bag. Some praise the short stint, others say that his tenure was lackluster. Either way, Bret Hart's career ended because of one man, Bill Goldberg. Well, sort of. Given all the interviews with Bret Hart, it's easy to assume that Goldberg was the man who officially ended his career. That was due to a stiff kick from Goldberg during the match at Starrcade in 1999. While the former WCW World Heavyweight Champion is partially responsible for the end of Bret Hart's career, the mounting injuries that Hart sustained throughout the remainder of his time in WCW forced the Hitman to hang up his boots once and for all. But let's get one thing straight, Goldberg was the defining factor for why Hart had to retire a short time later, though it's not completely his fault. The former NFL defense tackle had little experience in wrestling, so Goldberg learned most of his skills when he stepped into the WCW ring. That's a big reason why WCW wisely kept Goldberg in short matches for a lengthy period. Nevertheless, there's no telling how far Bret's career would have gone if Goldberg hadn't kicked him.
Hey guys! Today we're going to learn how to add this scrolling animation to your website in
into Kingdom Come. Still, Bret Hart accomplished so much in his Hall of Fame career. Davey Boy Smith. The former Intercontinental Champion had a legendary run in the 80s, but in the 90s, the Montreal Screwjob saw him leave the WWE. Like Bret Hart, Davey Boy Smith started over in WCW, but his stint didn't last as long as Bret's due to the serious back injury he suffered at the Fall Brawl pay-per-view in 1998. Smith took a bad bump onto a trap door which resulted him in staying in hospital for 6 months. Sadly, the former IC champion spiraled after that major injury as he succumbed to prescription painkillers. But thankfully, Smith would recover from his substance abuse and even made a WWE comeback in 1999. However, the back injury ruined his career as Davey Boy Smith wasn't the same man who battled Bret Hart at SummerSlam 92. Though he was booked in several high-profile matches, it exposed how limited he became between the ropes. The Hall of Famer's return didn't last long, and unfortunately, Smith would pass away 2 years after his final WWE match. Droz. But Droz, aka Puke, didn't have much of a career in WWE. His most memorable moment was the critically blasted segment where Hawk climbed the Titantron in an attempt to end his life. Once that angle was dropped due to the heavy backlash, he competed here and there in the tag team division with Prince Albert. However, one match would put an end to his career permanently, and it happened during a SmackDown taping on October 5th, 1999. Puke was facing former IC champion D'Lo Brown, and all was going well until D'Lo hit a running powerbomb. D'Lo slipped on a drink that was thrown into the ring, resulting in him accidentally dropping Puke on his head, breaking 2 bones in his neck. Droz took responsibility for the accident as he stated that he didn't eat properly and wearing a loose shirt really didn't help. Though he underwent hours of surgery immediately, it was not successful. Droz was paralyzed and needed constant care until he passed away in 2023. And Austin Aries. Let's get one thing straight, Austin Aries killed Austin Aries. After years of working his ass off on the independent scene and TNA, Aries finally got the opportunity to work in the biggest promotion in America. For the most part, Aries was treated well even when he was forced to sit out due to an injury. That was a blessing in disguise, as it allowed the former TNA World Heavyweight Champion to display his charisma and personality in the commentary booth. That in turn saw Aries and Neville fight for the Cruiserweight Championship at WrestleMania 33. Following his second loss to Neville at Extreme Rules, he was released from WWE. There wasn't a match that ruined his stint with the company, it all comes back to the former star's behavior backstage. Hell, even Aries has admitted to being a pain in the ass behind the scenes. But that brings us to the match that actually killed his career. Austin Aries vs Johnny Impact at Bound for Glory. Despite his falling out in WWE, Aries came back to TNA and regained success. His return in 2018 was going well until he feuded with Johnny Impact. The two wrestlers blurred the lines in their build, and Aries taking plenty of shots at Johnny's wife Taya Valkyrie. Now, that part was reportedly a shoot, but what Aries did after his match with Impact was downright strange. Johnny beat Aries clean in the middle of the ring at Bound for Glory, but instead of selling the loss, Aries immediately got up, yelled at the commentators, and flipped off the crowd. Everybody was confused. He and Johnny had a great match, but the only thing that the people could talk about was the controversial moment afterwards. Aries has maintained that that was not a shoot and it was a planned moment. Aries told Steve Ball of Wrestling News, "So my only regret for that whole situation was passing on the contract offer that was put on the table after that. I never talked about some personal things that I was going through at the time, and I just decided that was in my best interest not to re-sign there. In retrospect, in hindsight, however many years later, I would have made that decision differently. That definitely created the perception that, I don't come back. There is no rematch, there's no payoff to this. It would seem like I went into business for myself. I was really looking back, I could kick myself because it wasn't for the actual Bound for Glory moment, it was for not following through with what was planned." It's been 6 years and Aries has been seen in TNA since. He's wrestled in MLW, NWA, and a failed Control Your Narrative promotion. Aries ruined his career following that one moment, and it's a damn shame as he's an extremely talented wrestler. He could have been a top star in WWE, AEW, or even a place like New Japan. Sadly, that infamous walkout was the final straw that broke the camel's back. But there you have it, folks, WWE wrestlers that killed their careers in one match. Be sure to leave your comments down below, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.
Thank y'all for watching. I'm gonna see y'all in the next one. Y'all stay tuned.